Well, listeners, there is a brand new film out this week that we know that you are going to want to check out. It's a Western. It's got a little bit of a suspense thriller vibe to it. It's also got some horror thrown in there as well. It's called Ghost Town, and it is out this week. And we thought today we would actually chat to a man who plays a very, very important part with this film. He is the director, he is the writer, and he is the star of the film. So welcome to the program, Owen Conway.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So, Owen, tell us a little bit about Ghost Town. What can our listeners expect when they sit down to watch this film?
So it's a horror story, I'd say, set in the Old West. We certainly have the Western aesthetic. We use a lot of the trappings of the Western genre, but I would say it's something akin to like a 90-minute Twilight Zone episode, something like that.
Okay, so where did the idea first come to for you? Like, what started this project off?
Well, it's tough to sort of pinpoint it. I know at the period that I started writing it, I was trying to think about something I could do with the resources that were available to me. I mean, you often write, the movie you want to see and kind of don't think about budget or anything like that, just to get the story out. But with Ghost Town, I really wanted to come at it from the point of like, okay, what can I do with what I have? So the idea of centering it all on one character, I thought was a really interesting challenge, and also very kind of it just made it simpler. It made it simpler to kind of follow this one guy through these different scenarios, and ultimately, it made the most sense to wind up playing it myself and directing it myself because, a lot of reasons. But yeah. So I mean, a good three years ago, I think I started writing it, and now we're at the release. Yeah.
Where did your love for the Western genre come from? I know you have acted in a few Westerns over the years, including playing Billy the Kid in Redemption. Where did your love for the Western genre come from?
I mean, in the States, it's very much a part of the DNA of the culture. It's kind of our myths.
Yeah.
And certainly here in the Southwest, it's a huge part of the culture. And you remember these things that have such impacts on you as a little kid, and like Tombstone just blew my mind as a kid. I couldn't believe a movie that was there was a movie like that, and that got me. Going back to the Twilight Zone, there's a fair amount of those that were set in a Western, had a Western setting and time period, because I mean they had the lot and figured let's write to what we have again.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I feel like supernatural stuff really works in a Western environment. In such an interesting way. It complements. First of all, most of the people of that time period are super, very much believed in ghosts and demons and angels and such. So you don't have that hurdle to jump, and then it simplifies things. You don't have to think about the internet or think about cars or anything like that. The audience will buy this guy coming upon this town on his own, totally. I guess that's
Yeah. So was the Western, was it always going to be a Western in your mind? Like, was there ever a time when you thought about putting it into a different setting, or was it always going to be a Western?
It was always going to be a Western. Part of that is Westerns were kind of the first movies, really. They were the first, certainly the American movies, the first big cultural cinematic thing, and so much of what we consider the Old West is inventions of Hollywood, and so the movie ultimately kind of, to me, is a movie kind of about movies. So setting it about movies and about the time period when we started to have access to cameras, when we all of a sudden we had the closest thing you could get to an objective eye, an objective witness.
Yeah.
The camera, and ultimately video, of course, and now we live in a world where everything's on video. It felt right that was the time period for a lot of reasons, yeah. No, it was always a Western, yeah.
So when you were writing the character of Solomon, did you always have yourself in mind for that role, or did that come about a little bit later on?
Yeah, I was writing it kind of to my strengths as an actor, and also to the areas where I wanted to challenge myself. Um, yeah, I always had myself in mind. Um, but when it came to the point of when we really got the ball rolling, when I was greenlit, so to speak, and started to dawn on me that I'm going to have to find a director and kind of put him through the whole, because I had already worked Solomon out. I had kind of worked the character, done my acting work as I was writing it. There was no compartmentalizing.
Yep.
I moved together. So it became, I was always going to play Solomon. I wasn't always going to direct the game.
Yep. So how did that come about? When was the moment that you thought, I'm the perfect person to direct this?
So, I mean, part of it is like practicality. I can always get a hold of myself. I'm not gonna, you know what I mean. I can make sure I don't cut my hair, my beard. I think it's a very specific performance. Solomon, it's a very specific thing, and I kind of wasn't super confident in my abilities as a writer to communicate that either to an actor or to a director. That was a big part of it. I felt like so much of this movie is stuff that I couldn't kind of get out in words. It had to be pictures. That's why the movie exists. So it seemed like just simply something we really couldn't afford, and it seemed like it would probably, just the way this specific movie, this story plays out, it would heighten the movie on a kind of meta level.
Yep.
And I think it did that.
Definitely. What was the most challenging thing you found about directing a movie that you were also acting in? Was there any challenges there that you found?
Yeah, I mean, it takes some getting used to, and you have to kind of break down some of these walls that are put up, that are kind of holdovers from the days of actual film. One thing is like, just I had done a lot of work as an editor, so the idea was to just keep the thing rolling and stay in the moment. If an actor flubbed a line, you take a breath and you just kept going. The hardest part was probably, to be honest, post-production.
Okay.
Because the pre-production is very stressful, and it's very, you feel like you're just treading water. But you are barreling towards this date when you're going to start, and you're going to go whether you're ready or not. And then when you're off on production, you're so busy. Hopefully things are moving, which we moved really, really well in this movie. I had a great crew, obviously, and cast. It's when you get to post and you have this big pile of footage, and I had a difficult time communicating what the movie was ultimately going to be for the first 6 months or so of post-production, because it's a digital effects heavy movie, and that's hard to communicate to people who maybe aren't. They look at a rough cut and it's like, oh God, what the hell is this? And you don't understand, the ghost is going to appear there, and the guy, it was the toughest part, because there were this period where I felt kind of on my own, not in the sense that I was abandoned, but in the sense that I was the only one who could kind of see it.
Yeah.
And it would just take barreling through it and working, keeping my head down and getting it to the end, and having faith that once it got there, everyone else would see it too. And certainly I think we got there.
Definitely, you definitely got there. And I was going to ask too, Owen, about the cast around you. You've put such an amazing cast around you. How did you go about that casting process?
So yeah, it was another kind of case of breaking down a lot of the kind of the walls and the steps. I didn't worry about a casting director. I didn't really worry about auditions. I read a couple of people, and I think I may have think I cast Brittany May, who plays Blondie, by auditioning, by the audition process. But pretty much everybody else was someone I had either worked with before or I knew personally and wanted to work with, and it was really most of it was a matter of emailing or texting someone to be like, hey, I'm making this movie, you want to play this part. I felt that was, again, cutting to the chase and making the most use of the time in pre-production instead of going through this whole process where I'm probably going to wind up back with the people I have in mind already anyway. Let's just give them the parts and start working the characters. They say, you rewrite the script, a couple of times. You write it and then you write it again after you cast it, and then of course you write it again in post. And I was able to kind of avoid the second step because a lot of these characters were written with these actors in mind.
Yep.
So, it was keeping it close.
Awesome. Well, mate, you have done such an amazing job on this film. How do you feel now that it's coming out this week and that a wider audience is going to be able to see it?
It's terrifying. I mean, it's very exhilarating and surreal, and I'm very excited for people to see it, for the audience for an audience to absorb it and figure out what it means to them. I think it's a weird movie. It's a unique movie, and I think it'll get various reactions. I mean, I'm kind of gonna insulate myself from a lot of the reactions and try to focus on a new project, just because it's so easy to get doom scrolling and but it's very exciting. It's my first movie, and so there's a little bit of the fear, but it's a performance. It's skills that I've been honing really my whole life that I've never really been able to share.
Yep.
So it's big. It's very big for me personally.
Do you want to keep directing now? Is that something that you'll see that you'll do a lot more directing?
I mean, it's a tough racket directing, and I like the kind of narrower scope of just focusing on a character. But that said, I'm writing all the time, and the stuff I write, like Ghost Town, it starts to wind up being very specific, and I'm like, well, I've already kind of got the whole thing in my head. I've kind of got a lot of it boarded out, and I'm probably going to direct this one. There's a couple of scripts of my own that I definitely want to direct. I don't know if I would. I'm not in any rush to, really.
Yeah. Well, Owen, we definitely cannot wait to see what projects you work on next. But to finish off the interview, what would you like to say to our listeners out there who are about to sit down and watch Ghost Town this week?
I hope you enjoy it. It's pulpy. We have a lot of fun. It's funny, but it's heavy. I think it's heavy in the right places, and it's light in the right places, and it's weird. So don't judge.